made that same Jesus whom ye crucified, both Lord and Christ. Unquote. How could God have made Jesus both Lord and Christ when that would have meant that he was neither one at one time or another? And second, in Acts 2:31, Peter says he's talking about David, spoke of the resurrection of Christ, that his soul was not left in hell, neither did his flesh see corruption. Unquote. The soul of Jesus was in hell. Left in hell means that it was there at one time or other. How could the soul of a perfect being have ever been in hell? The only conclusion to be drawn from these citations is that Peter not only misinterpreted the Old Testament, but contradicted the New Testament. We'd like to conclude today with another critical letter. The writer states, "You are wrong when you contend that Christians regard each other as so much rubbish or dung. I can't speak for other religions, but Christianity teaches that all people have dignity, worth, and beauty because they're made in God's image and because they're loved by God. Jesus commands us, in fact, to value each other to the point of giving our lives for each other. To say that we regard each other as pieces of dung is to confuse us with the secularists and the humanists like B.F. Skinner, who regard man as nothing more than an animal with no intrinsic worth beyond what he can contribute to the common good. The 20th century has certainly paid in abundant quantities of blood for this sort of thinking, as tyranny after tyranny has tried to expunge any theistic basis for human rights and human dignity from the societies they oppress." Unquote. My response to this was, you are only perpetuating the ridiculous mythology that has enwrapped the Christian community for centuries. In the first place, you have chosen to ignore the teachings of Christianity's real founder, Paul, who said in Romans 7, "We know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. I don't understand my own actions, for I don't do what I want, but I do the very thing that I hate. For I know that nothing good dwells within me, that is, within my flesh. I can will what is right, but I can't do it. For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I do. I see in my members another law at war with the law of my mind, and making me captive to the law of sin which dwells in my members. Wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death?" Unquote. Paul. Clearly, Paul looks upon himself as carnal and having nothing good dwelling within. He's wretched and a captive to the law of sin. Are you saying that you and the rest of humanity are somehow better? Are you saying your moral character exceeds that of a saint? St. Paul. Other verses could be quoted, but the point has been made. Martin Luther's reference to man being little more than a piece of dung is biblically sustainable. Second, the Bible refers to man being made in the image of God. But could you cite chapter and verse where the Bible specifically applies the words dignity, worth, and beauty to man, rather than having them read into the text? Do you have any specific citations? Or are you just drawing conjectures from few words and one lone verse in particular? Third, could you also cite chapter and verse to substantiate your assertion that Jesus commanded us to give our lives for one another? One of the most common mistakes of nearly all biblical propagandists lies in their repeated tendency to embellish the biblical story. They just can't help but add to the text anything that makes it more astounding, more colorful, and more representative of the message they seek to convey. I've sat through many a sermon on Scripture wondering, where on earth is he getting all that? A couple of Christian movies I recently watched, entitled Sodom and Gomorrah and Samson and Delilah, were loaded with non-biblical material. Fourth, as far as the references to pieces of dung is concerned, I think that you will find that Martin Luther, the most influential of all Protestant theologians, is more in tune with biblical teachings than yourself, and far more likely to refer to man as a piece of dung than B.F. Skinner. Fifth, your observations with respect to the 20th century are a little short of ridiculous. I challenge you to find any group on this planet that has been involved in bloodier and more costly conflicts than the world's Christians. All the European countries swim in a sea of Christian indoctrination, and yet they have been the source of the bloodiest internal and colonial conflicts in world history. In this century alone, tens of millions have paid the supreme sacrifice in wars in which major Christian leaders and organizations clearly supported both sides. The Christian record is nothing short of abysmal. And lastly, as far as governments are concerned, those which have oppressed their citizens the most are precisely those that have been the most closely allied with religions, especially Christianity. Franco in Spain, Pinochet in Chile, Somoza in Nicaragua, Duvalier in Haiti, Diem in Vietnam, Hitler in Germany, and Mussolini in Italy are prime examples. They were all staunch Christians. That completes our presentation, and please join us later for the 84th edition of Biblical Errancy Commentary, when we'll continue showing why the Bible is nothing more than the flawed composition of some fallible human beings. Thank you for listening.